like really hate on me for it actually, which was a downside, because you know when you've bought something like that and you think people are going to be pleased for you, they're not. So many people, if they see you with nice things, they will hate on you. Boho was a thing, and then Christmas was coming, and I was like, I'm going to treat myself to a Michael Kors watch. But I felt like I had to prove myself, so I bought it. Please don't laugh. I know you're going to laugh. Who remembers bandage dresses? Hi everyone. Wow, have I got some stuff to talk to you about today. I'm going to be going through some of my biggest regrets, as well as two of my most perfect things that I ever purchased, and I'm so glad I bought them, and they were big purchases. I'm not talking about a handbag here, I'm talking about something that was like 50 grand and over. So I'm going to go through all of that at the same time, and I'm going to tell you how I did it. Now, in this video, it is going to be a little bit comical, in that I'm embarrassed to say I will be including photos of myself and my style from 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. So there are going to be some really old pictures in here, but there's nothing too embarrassing. Well, maybe there is. So let's begin. I've got to start by saying that some of the things I regret buying the most were not designer goods. They weren't anything of any notability. Tell you what it was. I regret buying things back in the day that I don't even have anymore, because I sold them, and I sold them at a loss. And I regret buying those things because I used to buy a lot of junk, and that's how I got into debt. It's part of the reason how I got into debt. And I do still have some of that toot now, which I'm going to show you. Although not from the debt era, actually. I kind of got it out of debt by the time I started to buy the stuff I'm going to show you. But you know, a lot of it was just stuff, fashion stuff from the 2000s, like the early to late mid 2000s, where I would buy junky clothes from New Look that wouldn't last. I would buy shoes from River Island or Faith. Remember Faith? Didn't last. And then what I used to do is, because I couldn't afford my repayments on credit cards, etc., I used to end up selling at a loss the items I bought to help pay back the credit cards. And it just became this ridiculous spiral of just buying things for like nights out or to like for whatever, and then selling them at a loss when I shouldn't have bought them in the first place. But you live and you learn, don't you? So I've got to say, a lot of my most regretful purchases were purchases that I made when I was at university and when I got my first rubbish job before I got my first good job. They were just things that I purchased then, and I think it's because I was young. I wanted to kind of keep up with fashion trends. So one of the first things that I regret buying, but I also regret selling, and it's this bag from Chanel. Now, let me know what you think of this bag, and please excuse my wallpaper. That wallpaper was a vibe back then. It's very much not now, but this picture was taken from around about 2010 and 2011, and wallpaper like this, who remembers doing one wall in wallpaper like that and then painting the other walls in a colour that vaguely matches that wallpaper? That's what we did. And awful, but it was a thing back then. So with this bag, I bought it, and I tell you why I regret it, but I walked into Chanel, it was my birthday, and I decided I want to buy a Chanel bag. But when I walked in, I was incredibly nervous because they were not friendly in there at all. And in fact, I really remember it because David came with me, and it was the store that was on the, is it called the, what's that store that's in Fulham? Do you remember it used to be on the corner there? It's not the Brompton Road, that's the one that Harrods is on. It's the Fulham Road. It used to be there opposite the Michelin building. And I went in there, and they were so unfriendly, and I got the feeling that they thought, because I was quite young at the time, that I was going to be a time waster and couldn't afford it. But I'd like landed the most amazing job, and I very much could afford it, and I'd paid off all my credit card debt, and I was like, yes, we're good to go. And do you know what I should have done? I should have bought the classic flap, That's really what I wanted. But they were so, I remember there was none on display. What was on display were sort of more seasonal pieces, including this bag. And I didn't have the confidence to ask, and I didn't even know it was called the classic flat. I just knew what it looked like. I wasn't sort of up to scratch enough to know what I was asking for. And I just remember the lady being so frosty with me. And as I say, David was with me and he remarked on it when we left the shop. But I saw this bag on the shelf behind her and I was like, oh, can I look at that bag? And she showed it to me again, kind of like, you know, kind of in that attitude. And I felt that, do you know how I felt? And I wouldn't feel like this now. I'd actually walk out if I got that sort of service. But I felt like I had to prove myself, so I bought it. And I shouldn't have done that. And I remember her attitude changed slightly when I was like, okay, I'm going to go and buy this. But I shouldn't have bought it. I should have asked to go and look at the bag that I'd gone in there for, because the classic flat back then was, I remember it was around about £2,000. In fact, it could have been just a tad under. And I should have got it back then. Because actually, I remember it being about the same price as that bag. Right, the next, please don't laugh. I know you're going to laugh. Who remembers bandage dresses, bodycon dresses? I used to buy loads of them because I just loved how they looked. But I ended up selling lots. And I'm going to show you some pictures here. Please excuse the mess in the background. I remember this day, I had loads of stuff I was eBaying and I dumped them all behind me and I didn't think about a clean background. I was like, David, I remember he was sat on the sofa and I was like, take some pictures of me in these clothes. So here are a selection of bodycon dresses that I bought that I no longer own, that are very much not in style anymore. Will bandage dresses come back around? Do we think that? Hopefully not. But do you remember those bodycon dresses from like the early 2010s? And you used to wear them with some ghastly jewellery, which I'm going to come on to in a second. Okay, so talking about ghastly jewellery, another thing that I deeply regret buying is... who remembers the Michael Kors watch? Oof. Do you remember this? Are we going to focus? I think it's focused. This was the thing to be seen with. What can I say? This was it. All of my friends had one. And then Christmas was coming and I was like, I'm going to treat myself to a Michael Kors watch. How does it look on? That's it. From afar, could you... think it's a Rolex? Anyway, no, you couldn't. But it's something I bought and I never sold it because it's kind of, for me, it's a reminder of the junk that I used to buy. And it's also sort of quite nostalgic as well, in a way. Plus as well, I wouldn't get much money for it, so I wouldn't bother. But talking about disgusting jewellery, have a look at this picture here. So another thing that was trendy that I bought a lot of was really oversized costume jewellery. And this is a picture where I'd gone out with some work friends on an evening, and that's why, like at the time, I used to wear like a brightly coloured top with a blazer over the top. Do you remember that sort of corporate glam look at the time where you wore really high sort of shoe boots? Who remembers shoe boots? Oh, well, I think I still have that bracelet, and let me check the picture. Oh my god, it's the same bracelet. Look. How ghastly is this bracelet? It's awful. But this was the thing. This is what you wore on your wrist. And I also have, I'm embarrassed to show you this one. It's Juicy Couture and it's so ugly and I don't know what I was thinking. It is like two zebras and you do that to put it on and off your wrist and it is hideous. Absolutely hideous. I don't get it. The other things that I bought were oversized Swarovski rings. Do you remember these? This was a thing. And also in this picture, see the necklace I'm wearing? I still have it. I should have sold it. Probably would have sold it for a loss, no doubt. But look, I still have it. And also what I have is boho was a thing. Will this go over my head? Yes. So I bought this necklace. It's so gross. And what you do with it is like you wear it like this. I bought it from this shop that was all about Ibiza styling. There we go, there we go. And you wear it kind of like that. And you wore it over a sort of like a boho white dress. I remember going in the shop and the lady was I'm just going to carry on wearing this for the rest of the video. I went into the shop, the lady was wearing it, and I was like, I need that necklace. And she took it off and sold it to me. It probably wasn't even for sale, it was probably hers. The next big regret for me was another handbag, and it was a Miu Miu bag. Again, please excuse what I'm wearing. It was very of the time. Who used to wear skinny jeans in a colour? It was a thing. It was what you did. Now, the bag, I bought this because, again, this was a big thing, and you could get it in the pink, which I have here. You could also get it in like a taupey colour, and I think it came in black as well. And a friend of mine bought the taupey colour, and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I have to have it. And then again, I remember it was my birthday coming up, and I thought, right, I'm gonna go and get this. And this had to have been one of it was either my second or my third designer bag at this point. And I bought the bag, and I ended up selling it. Again, I sold it for a loss, because by the time I sold it, it was really out of fashion. And one of you, when I showed it in the video back in 2016, I laughed because you said it looked like a blobfish, and it basically does look like a blobfish. Again, I regret it, but at the same time, it was a thing. It was a thing. Now, the final thing that I regret buying, before I talk to you about two massive things that I bought, and I'm so glad that I bought them, it's a car. It's a BMW, and it was one I've spoken to you about before, but I bought it when I was at university. What was I thinking? I had a car at the time, but kept breaking down, and it was a real old banger. And I just didn't feel good in it. And I'm all about cars, and I always have been. But a friend of mine got a new car, and I went with her to the dealership. There was a BMW dealership, and I had always wanted, do you remember the 3 Series Compact? I had always wanted that car. It had like a hatchback boot on it. And I remember at the time they were like £16,000. And of course, when you don't have a job and you're at university, it might as well be £1 million for what it's worth. So I went into the dealership, and I was like looking at this car in the showroom. And the salesman was like, oh, you know, we've got some used and they're cheaper. And I thought, okay, well, I'll have a look. I had no intention of buying. Well, I kind of did. I kind of wanted it, but I didn't realise finance existed, okay? This is where we're going with this story. He showed me round a silver one that was outside, and I was just like, I'll take it, I'll take it. And because he told me about finance. And what can I say? I signed a finance agreement. I had no job. They didn't check. They didn't ask. He knew I was at university. The only income I had was a student loan and a bunch of credit cards, and that's all I had. Do you know something mad? The finance went through. Who puts finance through on someone with no job? You know, I look back at it and I'm like, how irresponsible. And I'm angry, actually. I'm angry at myself, although I was really young and naive and stupid. I'm angry at the grown man salesman who clearly did that for his own commission, who didn't care that he was getting someone in debt, somebody who didn't have any money, and he knew that I didn't work. Because I remember saying it when we were putting the credit through. I was like, oh, you do know I've not got a job. And I remember he was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure it'll be fine. And that's kind of what I'm annoyed about. But talking about cars, so I can't remember the year, but when I was around about 26, 27, I got a decent job. I always had this goal where I wanted to hit director before 30. And at the time, through my 20s, I used to view the career ladder as being like a mountain. And I used to climb this mountain, and I wasn't distracted. I did go out in an evening on the weekends, but I wasn't distracted by it. I was very, very career focused, and I was career focused, I think, because I was carrying so much debt, but also because I had big aspirations. You know, I knew I didn't want kids. I knew that career was going to be my thing. So anyway, I used to see my work as climbing this mountain. And whenever I got a new job title, I saw it as like a new base camp higher up the mountain to where I'd come from, and I'd chill there for a bit and I'd do my work, and then I'd carry on climbing. And I think the pinnacle for me was when I got to a point where I couldn't go any more senior than I was without running my own business. That was the only next thing for me, and that's what I did. But anyway, the first thing I bought, so I cleared off my debt. I remember I did it in one day. So I'd saved, then I got this new job and I carried on saving even bigger this time, and I didn't buy stuff, I just focused on saving. And then one day I was in my lunch break and I phoned up every single credit card and I paid every single one off over the phone. I moved my savings into my current account on my debit card and I paid off every single credit card. Do you know something? The feeling I had after, I wanted to scream in the street with joy. I still get goosebumps when I think about it, because it was such a eureka moment. It was such, the debt had been keeping me up for years at night. It stressed me out for years. And the day that the day came, which was a day I never thought, in my earlier years, I thought I'm never going to pay this off. It was bigger than me, but I did it. £40,000 worth of debt, I did it. Well, anyway, do you know what I did after that? Carried on with my saving. But I thought, I'm going to buy myself a new car. I'm going to treat myself. So I had this fancy new job and I decided I was going to go and buy a new car. Now, I have always loved Porsche. But I thought, even with my new job, I'm never going to be able to afford one. And David said to me one weekend, he said, let's go into the dealership. I'm sure it'll be fine. So we go into this dealership and I was looking at Boxsters, because that's what I wanted. I wanted a convertible Boxster and I wanted it in black. And I was looking around and a salesperson came over and said, can I help you? And I was so embarrassed about being laughed out of the showroom, because I put this car on finance, but at this point I could afford it. And to be honest, I was glad that I put that car on finance, because I didn't keep it for longer than 3 years for a reason I'm going to come on to. But I had a big deposit, and I also knew how much I could afford per month, how much I wanted to afford, because unlike with that first car I bought where I was maxed out every month, with this car I was like, no, I want a big enough deposit where my payments are really small and I can carry on saving. Anyway, so I told him and he was like, yeah, you can get that car for that money. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And we went looking through, I decided to buy a used one because that's what I could afford. And we found, beautiful. I don't have a picture of it anymore in the showroom, but when I went and collected it on the day, it was under a cover in the showroom and there was a plaque next to it with my name on it. And it was like, do not touch. And it had my name on it. And yeah, I got this car and I was just like buzzing when I got this car. But then a few years later, so I didn't keep it for very long, because the dealership phoned me and said, do you know what? Do you want to keep that car? Because there's a new model out and you might want to consider it. This was in 2013. Now, by this point, I'd saved a lot. And I thought, again, you know, do I want another car? And I went and looked at the newer model and I was just like, yeah, I want to upgrade. And also by this point, my car was out of warranty and that would have been a lot to have put back in warranty again. And I thought, oh, you know, if stuff starts going wrong with it, that's going to get expensive. So I bought this second car. And do you know what I did? I put that in finance as well, because with the large amounts of money I'd saved, I wanted to put the rest towards a house. So, and I think that when I look back, that was the smartest thing I've ever done. I think credit when you can't afford it is one of the most stupid things you can do. But credit when you're being savvy with money can be one of the best things you can do. Because you know what, when I look back on that car was about just a bit over £50,000. But when I put together the deposit that I put in and all of the monthly payments, I calculated it to have cost me around about 20 or 30,000, probably nearer 20 actually. Because how many years did I keep it? I kept it like 3 years. So I think sometimes car finance can be a good thing, but in other times, like I do have cars that I've bought outright, and I think that some cars it's been the right decision for me, and other cars financing was the smarter move. So both of those cars were just like pivotal moments for me. To have picked up that black one when I was 26, 27, to have walked into that dealership, and tell you what, when I was driving around in that car, had so many people hate on me for that car and for the white one as well. So many people, but like really hate on me for it actually, which was a downside, because you know when you've bought something like that and you think people are going to be pleased for you, they're not. So many people, if they see you with nice things, they will hate on you. There are some lovely people out there who will be so pleased for you that you've worked hard and you've achieved something, but there's a lot of jealous people out there who won't even care that you've been working long hours for years, for like 10 years. They won't even care. As far as they're concerned, you don't deserve it and you shouldn't have it. And you can't do anything about people like that. They're out there, they exist. This necklace is putting me off. Anyway, they're the things that I regret and don't regret. If you're still here, because this video is long, well done you. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.